We're all set for more cricket action. A couple of old friends, a couple of childhood friends going head to head as members of the opposition, both captaining their respective franchises. Should be a wonderful clash, but also crucial 2 points for either of these two teams to pick up, with a couple of franchises looking really good at the very top, as we saw in the last couple of days. This is Lucknow taking on Punjab, and of course, we'll build up to those two friends. We also have a couple of good friends in our panel here on Cricbuzz Live. And they're not on opposite ends of the spectrum. We're all together, all for one here on Cricbuzz Live. Pommie Mbangwa, Shaun Pollock, gentlemen, looking just a little different in slightly different shades of blue. Let me come to slightly lighter shade, Shaun Pollock.
Is this Mamba blue?
Yeah, I think it's very close. Very close.
Okay,
yeah.
Could be. Yeah, looking forward to the game today. I think it should be pretty good. And as you say, teed up by the two captains being best of buddies, but in different form, aren't they? I mean, we've got Rahul, who's firing on all cylinders, and we've got Mayank, who's sort of struggling for runs at this stage. But I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, good to be working with Pommie again, even if we are on different sides of the world.
Yeah, we are. But yeah, look, it's a good thing that my color is kind of, a bit different. You said blue. I'm trying to work out why you said blue.
Isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's not. Blue. Oh, I don't know. Something's gone wrong then. Because
it looks navy blue.
It looks navy blue.
Black. It's black. I can assure you. When I have to work with my colors, gonna make sure I separate my laundry and I wash it and all of that. So it does. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the game actually. Looking forward to it because the way that one side plays can be particularly exciting. That's in the Punjab Kings, but it can also come crashing down. And then the other side, having been put together, recently, and kind of a collection of guys from various places, has worked out quite nicely, which we've said that for the two franchises that are brand new. And I know, many will say, hold on, the guys who've changed franchises and so forth, but they kind of have a way of working already. And so would kind of be trying to make everyone fit into their puzzle. These guys are trying to kind of devise a new way. And it seems it's working, and they're more towards the top of the table. And it's the older, more embedded, more established sides that are towards the bottom of the table. So, yeah, that's quite exciting.
Well, let's talk about those two friends. We've talked about different shades of blue. I can add in one more slightly unorthodox shade of blue for myself, but red versus turquoise. That's the colors out there in the middle. But two good friends, Mayank Agarwal, KL Rahul, might have scored lots and lots of runs together when they opened the batting. Today, they're on opposite sides, Shaun. And if we have a look at their numbers, Mayank Agarwal maybe not quite having delivered what his mate has.
Yeah, he hasn't. And I mean, that's maybe got to do with the success as well. So much of this tournament is dictated by the form at the top of the order. When you're averaging 19 at a strike rate of 125 compared to 66 at a strike rate of 150, there's no doubt which team is going to be dominating terms. And KL Rahul, once again, I mean, he normally gets 500, 600 runs. He's heading on target for that as well. And, we obviously used to see him as a captain of Punjab. And you did get the feeling that after 2 or 3 seasons, he was almost getting into the mindset of, well, this is the team, this is what we can produce. And there may be a little bit of frustration that went with it because they just didn't kick on and never go on to win anything. Whereas now you get the feeling that his brain is pretty fresh about the new franchise and, the new players that he's got working underneath him. And to me, it looks like mentally he's in pretty good space.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where Mayank Agarwal is now, Pommie, captaining a franchise who, as you said at the top, have initially come out with one way of playing really hard. Then it all came crashing down against Delhi. Then they tried to rectify it slightly. Take your mind back to when KL Rahul was captain. Not always did he express himself with the bat as we would have liked. Is Mayank going through something similar?
I don't know. I don't know that I would say that because Mayank just hasn't got away this season. And it would be different if we sort of said, he's playing this way because he's trying to be a bit more circumspect, because maybe there isn't the trust after a few games of those further down the order and all of that. I think it was that way for KL, where if he didn't get runs up at the top when he was at Punjab, then generally there'd be a problem as you went further down. But so rare was it that he wouldn't get runs. And so he continually, as Shaun says, get 500, 600 runs every season. And still they would languish towards the bottom of the table rather than sort of be up there challenging. And they'd lose close games all the time. This time around for Mayank, I think it's just a question of here's a new role for him. And suddenly it's not just him thinking about, oh, I've got a bat and I just get runs and that's it. He's got to think about the whole franchise. He's the captain of the ship. And some guys take to that and, adjust straight away, and the more responsibility has them kind of focused and able to do whatever the job is at the time, do it well enough and kind of be zoned in, as it were. Maybe the issue for him is that there's too much to think about, and too much to think about, not in the way of my team's doing badly, but I just have all these responsibilities and I've got to kind of break them up into little pieces and try and think about this one at this time and that one at that time and he's not quite managing to do that. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Do you think playing against his mate, Shaun, will bring out the best in him? I mean, it's one thing to play together as a partnership. They've gone to the toss together. They've taken that nice customary photograph. Now, do you think he'll tell KL Rahul, okay, well, what do we, I'm up against you. A few more runs to expect.
Yeah, I think it'll motivate him. I think he'd be keen to impress, but I think just from a team perspective, he must feel that responsibility-wise, he needs to get amongst the runs. He needs to set the tone at the top of the order, and I think he'd be more focused on that. He probably would have enjoyed the experience of going to the middle and spinning the coin and having a chat. But now that it's down to business, he'll once again realize the pressure of himself underperforming, and he'll be wanting to get that right.
What about toss and teams? Of course, we didn't quite confirm to you that Mayank Agarwal has done something he hasn't done too much of this season, and that's win a toss. But of course, he hasn't deviated, even though Punjab have been one of those teams like Rajasthan who wouldn't mind putting runs on the board. He's decided, evening game, nothing wrong with that perhaps, to go out and bowl first. But we'll talk about the Lucknow team first, because they are the ones who have made a key change. And we were all wondering, we were all questioning, is Avesh Khan fit? Is he ready to start again? The quick answer is yes, he is. So let's just confirm the Lucknow 11 that's going to start right now. And they made an interesting change, Pommie. They've left out a batsman. We thought if Avesh Khan was fit, out would go Mohsin Khan, in would come Avesh Khan. It's not happened. They've left Manish Pandey out to get Avesh Khan in. Your take on that?
I guess because they've got quite a few all-rounders, they feel that they can cover that. However, I think essentially with a bowler coming back and them deciding to leave out someone who's quite an experienced player in Manish Pandey, it's illustrative of the fact that he's not found his form. Teams are loath to try and change. Particularly when they're winning, they try and carry guys, those who are experienced, because they hope that they'll turn the corner and so forth. It's something I think that has plagued him for a few seasons, Manish Pandey, where we know he can play quite well and he can play in innings that's quite quick and aggressive and so forth. And when he bats in that number 3 position, can do that. But what happens is he'll play one, and then there many games where he bats at a runner ball rather than as quick as he should. And why that happens, nobody's really figured it out. And he gets dropped and it's supposedly addressed and he comes back into the side and then for a game it'll be okay, but then move on to the next and it comes straight back and it kind of seems to slide back into what is. I mean, you look at that and there's that one score against Mumbai, he gets 38 from 29. Nothing else really. I mean, the 6 from 8, I suppose not enough deliveries there, but the 22 at just 22 balls, just at 100 is it's not enough. And yes, you might sit and say, oh, wait, hold on, situation, they were winning comfortably and all that. It's just not ideal in this format, particularly if we're looking at the tournament sort of at where we are and back to the start where the pitches were quite nice and batters were batting at really healthy strike rates. you don't want a scenario where someone's slowing the progress down.
Yeah, it has been something we've talked a lot about, Manish Pandey. Even in India colours, we had done a stat on him a while ago about the number of games he's missed, the number of gaps he's had every time he's made a comeback to Team India. But Shaun, could it also be Manish Pandey just being the scapegoat in the sense that they've decided they want to strengthen their bowling, which, as we've discussed previously in the show, has not been their most number one strength, shall we say?
Yeah, I think Mohsin Khan, I like the way he went in the last game. I mean, he was the one who was brought in, and I was impressed by him. I thought their bowling in the last game was brilliant. I suppose what it does do is it covers for Ravi Bishnoi, who probably hasn't hit his straps as well as he could throughout the season. Because the way they closed out that game at the Wankhede last time was just brilliant against Mumbai. I mean, you thought Mumbai were going to launch an attack, and they weren't able to. You know, they stuck to their plans, and it just fizzled out into a win. There was absolutely nothing that transpired at the back end. So, yeah, I think, as I say, I wouldn't, Mohsin, I think you can't drop him. I thought he was really good. And I think maybe it is just cover for Bishnoi. I mean, their spinners have done well, haven't they? They've, in general, they've been some good contributions. And I think they're third on the list for amount of wickets that they've taken. And the other two are Rajasthan and, why am I having a blank here? Chahal and Ashwin play for Delhi. just trying to get to the bottom of that. And they are the international spinners, aren't they? Those are the 4 Indian spinners that you pick. But besides that, these guys have played a few games, but they performed really well. But as I say, Bishnoi probably hasn't been at his best. I don't know what it is. I mean, the wicket he picked up the other night off the foot wasn't his ultimate delivery that we've ever seen from him. And he's just offered up too many bad deliveries, like really rank bad deliveries this RPL. You know, in general, he was really consistent, and that's what got him his gig in the Indian side, didn't it? I mean, the way he performed and the accuracy he showed. Whereas we can see there that maybe just missing a trick this year, and that's maybe why they're giving themselves. And then there's also a message to Stoinis. Listen, we don't need you to bowl anymore, but we do need you to get some runs and get some big runs for us, please. So,
yeah, that's as far as Lucknow are concerned. But what about Punjab? They're the team we possibly expected to make a few changes. They've done that. I think only Kolkata have made more changes than Punjab throughout the season. But they've decided to put a full stop to it, Pommie. No changes, same 11. This is what we're going out with.
Yeah, you win. I think every reason to trust in the people who have won the game for you, and it was good work in that game, because in the previous match against CSK, because as you watched the game, you just expected, you know, CSK were going to get there, didn't have enough runs, and some way, somehow, I don't say some way, somehow, as if it's a surprise, they used their bowling attack quite well and came out on top in the end. As a side, I think aggression is kind of in the mind, and it has been. We've spoken a lot about the way that they look to go out aggressively. I thought that in that previous game, they might have gone out and gone too far the other way with the way that they started. Circumspect, not a whole lot of shots played, and therefore, you know, right at the back end, yes, they get some runs and kind of bump up the total. However, the approach needs to be balanced, and maybe the issue is that they're trying to arrive at what the balance is. All out attack and play shots, lose wickets before you get to the back end. And then not enough shots and don't lose many wickets at all, and sort of end up with a total that's kind of somewhere middling, and yet you haven't utilized all your players as much as you feel you could and should, because they're kind of strong batters. So still at this halfway stage, to be trying to figure that out is not a good place to be, I don't think, for a side, because many sides should kind of be set and going a particular way as they go towards sort of the next part of the tournament.
And Gautam, it's such an important, mature relationship that's required. And, you know, when you've worked in teams, you get the understanding. So a team will go as hard as they possibly can and get bowled out. And then as a management, you have a team meeting and say, come on, guys, we need to be a little bit more. And then they go the other way. And then they say, well, there you go, coach, you told us to play that way. Look what happened, kind of thing. So it has to be like a really mature environment where you can say, okay, I think we just need to tinker with it a little bit. That was maybe one end of the spectrum. We need to get it somewhere in the middle. And then also you would think with the experience they've got that should be able to work that out for themselves. It's not like they're relatively inexperienced. You've got guys who played a lot of cricket, international cricket, and they should be the ones who should be able to work out what's required. I just think sometimes when you've got the firepower still coming to the crease, you can get a bit blasé and a little bit risky, thinking that they're going to do the job and not take the responsibility. But if you look at that top three, I mean, Livingston, yeah, he's done okay, but he's sort of relatively inexperienced if I have to put it in that way, and what his RPL contribution has been. But the other three, I mean, there shouldn't be any doubt there. They should be able to work things out pretty quickly.
But what is the preferred? I mean, just if we hold on to that right now, we've had a lot of discussions in terms of what is the ideal way to utilize the top five. Let's put Rajapaksa in the mix because of the way he started this tournament. If Pommie, Shaun, both of you, come to Pommie first. If you have these five in front of you and you have the license to make the order, what's your five?
Right. Yeah. So I would ideally like Bairstow to be up at the top. And the reason I would like him to be up at the top is because just about all his success comes as an opener. You can search any other cricket, like any other 2020 cricket, and that's what it is. That's where he gets his runs. So because that's where he gets his runs, I continually go on about, where kind of franchises need to make sure that they're getting the optimum out of their players, right? Because of the form of the two guys who are 1, 2, and 3, I'll just swap them around. And I swap them around because the other one can open, being Bairstow. So skipper, go to number 3, and Shikhar and Bairstow open. And then Bhanuka Rajapaksa and Livingston sort of float. Depending on what happens up at the top, 1, 2, and 3, you might need a Livingston to come in before Rajapaksa because it's time for it to go. But if it's not, then Rajapaksa goes in and Livingston waits just a bit. If it kind of comes towards the end, sort of the middle part of the innings, and you think you're going to end up having too many balls at whoever's gone in rather than with Livingston so you can finish off, then you send him in. And I suppose you work out those cutoffs with regard to who will go in. And if this happens, you use Livingston, or if it doesn't happen, then you use Rajapaksa. But yeah, I'd swap them around. I'd have 1, Shikhar Dhawan, 2, Johnny Bairstow, 3, Mayank Agarwal, and then 4 and 5, depending on situation and so forth. That's kind of the way I'd look at it.
Well, we have had Mayank bat at 3 before, but before we give you those numbers, quickly looking at what Shikhar Dhawan had to say, and I'll get Shaun in for his batting order, or ideal batting order. Remember, today they're chasing. It's Lucknow who will be setting the total. What about Shikhar Dhawan? What did he have to say? I mean, not necessarily about only this conundrum, but about the conservative approach, if you could like, in the last game. We don't want to lose too many wickets in a bunch. That was a conscious effort today, the last game, but at the same time, not going in a shell and being aggressive. We kept that nice balance, play with the presence of mind and smartness, not just play with power hitting, but playing with the fields as well. So, Shaun, this was after their win against Chennai, where some felt that Livingston was sitting too long. Bhanuka Rajapaksa started well, but he should have just gone hard and let Livingston come in there. So, A, what was your reaction to that? And B, your batting order?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a chat you're supposed to have with each individual batter, doesn't it? The coach sits down. Okay, now I want you to use a bit of aggression, but don't be too reckless. Get the balance right and take it from there. I mean, it's those are the kind of stock standard approaches that you want as a unit. I think, I mean, the left-hand, right-hand, the combination at the top, as Pommie, if Pommie wants to go with Bairstow or Mayank to 3, I'm not really concerned about it. I get his point about the form, and, if you get off to a flyer with Bairstow and Dhawan at the top, then it doesn't really matter who comes after that. Anyone can come if you're up with the rate and you're going. I just think for me, I would, as you had it on that list, is probably right. I think a Livingston for me, I would look to use after 10 or 12 overs, and I think that's when, once that's done, then you say to him, okay, next thing goes, next wicket falls, you're in, and I want you just to play. I don't want him knocking around singles. He must just go with the mindset of playing with freedom. It's the way he plays, and I know that's a bit of a cop-out at times, but he is one of those guys who can just walk in and strike it, much like what a Russell tends to do. That's part of his game plan. So I would just say, okay, that's your role. Once 10 is done, be ready to go at the next drop of a wicket.
Yeah, and that sometimes we saw, just the body language in the dugout in their last game just seemed a little uncertain. Punjab were not sure who was ready to go in next. Johnny Bairstow looked all keen. Livingston sitting at the back, almost saying, teacher, am I in next? So there seemed a bit of that uncertainty, which we'll find out today if it's going to change or not. But what about the opposition? Let's look at Lucknow, because we did a little bit of a poll and tried to find out what all of you think about Lucknow not being as much of a threat at this stage of the tournament, certainly compared to the other new franchise, the Gujarat Titans. Let's look at the poll result and then get both Pommie and Shaun into this. Now, the question we asked was, why is Lucknow not threatening as a side? 3 options: tactical errors, as in things like Marcus Stoinis playing at the wrong place, etc., etc., etc. Bowling not being quite the threat. Today, remember, they've strengthened their bowling. They've got Manish Pandey out, Avesh Khan in. Or C, no support for KL Rahul. Now, that's also been one of the concerns. Pommie, how do you stand on this vis-a-vis the fans?
I need a definition on threat. What threat means. I think they are a threat. I think they haven't been as successful, but I don't think you can argue with where they are on the table, and for a side being described as not being that much of a threat, they're not doing badly. You imagine you're being described as not being too much of a threat, and this is where you are in the 10th. I think you'd be quite okay. As a side, yes, you'd like more help for KL Rahul. You'd like some others to score runs so that his side, they can get bigger totals and things can be that bit easier, I guess. But as a side, I think they've got a decent looking side, and they've got enough of a threat up at the top. If you think about people, bowlers, you ask them, okay, who wouldn't you like to bowl to? There are players in their side that guys don't want to bowl at. So as far as presenting a threat is concerned, they present one. But in terms of the results, perhaps not as successful as people might have thought at the start of the tournament.
Well, the number we saw, we told you a little bit earlier about Manish Pandey, 22 of 22. Well, he was the second best performer after KL Rahul, and KL Rahul got 100. And that resulted in whatever total they got in that particular game. But Shaun, do you tend to agree with the audience? KL Rahul needs a little bit of help. One, of course, is Manish Pandey is not in the team today. So our good friend Quinton de Kock, maybe?
Yeah, I definitely think. I think Quinton will be pretty disappointed with the way he's gone. He has been a little bit hit and miss, even for South Africa at times over the not so distant past. So I think if you get those two, if you get KL Rahul playing the same way he has for the tournament, and then you get Quinton de Kock firing, that's normally a really good, solid, fast start. And then you do need your contributions. I mean, that's better than what we see there in the middle order. I think Stoinis will get better as the tournament goes on. I don't think I'm too concerned about that. But I've liked their bowling. Yeah, I've got no issues with their bowling. As I said, it was probably the best display I saw as with regards to closing out an IPL match in a long time. The way they stuck to their plans and executed. And now they've strengthened it with the extra bowling option. Avesh Khan was brilliant last year, wasn't he? I mean, he was up there dominating terms for Delhi. So, yeah, I don't think I'd be too harsh on them. I think a new franchise, I think the where they stand now, they're in striking distance of making the playoffs. I wouldn't read too much into it, but I definitely do think that KL needs a bit of help from his friends. But that's a bit of a common trend. Wherever he plays, he needs a bit of help from his friends at times.
I think it was just a way of getting everybody involved and seeing what they feel. Maybe we should have put a fourth option in there, and that should have been, what are you talking about? They're fine as they are. So next time, we'll keep that option and we'll see how many people think that. I'm sure everyone from Lucknow and Kolkata, which is where their ownership is based, quite feel that they're doing okay with the turquoise jersey. One member of the opposition, though, is Arshdeep Singh. And for all the young bowlers we've been talking about, Shaun, I'll come to you first on this one. There are a lot of the emerging talent that we've seen. We've talked about the Mohsin Khans and the Mukesh Chaudharys of the world. Arshdeep isn't quite spring chicken anymore. He's been there, but he still continues to have that calmness about him and bowling at the death at a difficult time.
Yeah, and I think it is a difficult time, and there's not that many bowlers who want to do the job. Sometimes the people are a bit reluctant to get in the back end there. So when you find someone who's pretty good at doing it, someone like a Harsha Patel, the way he went last year, that's a real godsend for teams. And the way Arshdeep's gone, his economy rate has been brilliant. He hasn't picked up wickets, but that's sometimes what you don't need to do. But to average, there's the economy rate, 7.33. You can see the average, and he's just gone for the 6 boundaries and 9 overs. That's pretty good going. And if he can find a confident mindset about continuing to do that as the tournament goes on, then they're in a good place, because you want those guys. You want someone who's going to hold their nerve. And, how many times have we seen in this IPL this year where teams at the back end, it doesn't matter what you're trying to chase down, they're just knocking them off. It's 20, 25s, last over, it disappears. So if they can find someone they can rely on, they're very, 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 very happy camp.
And Pommie, he'll enjoy sharing the dressing room with certain KG Rabada.
Yeah, I think what happens when teams have a good bowler like Arshdeep Singh and also then have a guy who they'd call internationally experienced and one of the superstars, really, is that they're able to then deploy the international guy as and when they want. If we think about the fact that, and I'll use Mumbai as an example where Bolt and Bumrah worked together, they could use 3 overs of Bolt up at the front because they knew they had 4 overs of Bumrah up their sleeve. And in using the 3 overs of Bolt, they were trying to get wickets. They were trying all of that, still trying to look for potency. So in this case, knowing that there are 2 overs, maybe even 3 overs sometimes of death bowling from Arshdeep Singh at the back, they can use Rabada how they want up at the front. And then rather than just the 1, it's 2 they can use for sure. And then they can even bring him for 1 in the middle where there's a partnership that's kind of brewing and they need to try and slow it down or try and take a wicket. And then he only has to bowl 1, as was the case in their previous game. He only had 1 to bowl at the back and he bowled it. Meanwhile, Arshdeep had to bowl a couple and bowled them brilliantly. He's on the top of a list that's got quite a range of names, superstars, guys who've done the job for a long time, and he tops them all. So that's fantastic for him. You look at it, Shami, Bumrah, Bhuvaneshwar, Mustafizur. These are guys who've done this a long time and who've done it a lot for their countries. And here's this young guy. He's had practice over and over. He's put his hand up to say, I can bowl this Yorker at the back end and I can bowl it well. And he's getting better and better at doing it.
Yeah, big names in there. Fizz did it last night. Arshdeep, in fact, has been handed the first over. It's almost on cue. Someone's listening to our discussion. Oh, he's the man of the moment. Toss him the ball. Opening over from Arshdeep Singh to KL Rahul and Quinton de Kock. So while you gentlemen ponder the numbers that you're going to throw at us before we end our show, I will give all of you our Joy Factor question for the day. And this is very quickly the question that we have posed by Joy. And here it is. These 2 players not only share a nickname, we love nickname questions, but have also competed against each other at the T20 World Cup 2012 and signed up with the same Indian franchise. 2 people in the same Indian franchise share a nickname? Oh dear, it's got me in this one. They were up against each other in 2012 in the T20 World Cup. Okay, this should be fun. You can't possibly just Google this. You won't get it. And of course, if you don't want to Google and you want to go back in time, the way to do that is subscribe to Cricbuzz Plus and get onto Retro Reels. And as this week's episode is about winning streaks. And if it's Joy, you probably will think of one team more than another, but I won't tell you more about that. You need to get on, subscribe, find out what I'm talking about. Retro Reels. I guess you've got enough of hint by now. Get your question in, #Cricbuzz Live, #what numbers do we have, gentlemen? Who wants to go first?
178. No, 168. Sorry, 168. Sorry.
177.
168, 177. Punjab bowling. How much do I trust the Punjab bowling? Do I go higher? No, I'll go lower. I'll go in the 150s. 158. 158. Something tells me about the Punjab bowling. We've talked them up with Ashdeep and Rabada and Bishnoi to do a little bit of a job there. That's the three numbers we have for you. And that's all the time we have on the show right now. We will be back in about 9.5 hours time on Cricbuzz Combox, either with, it's going to be the men in blue, but either it's going to be Mumbai blue, navy blue claiming to be black, or a blue that I'm not sure how to describe at the moment. All right, Pommie, we'll get back to you on that one. But all of you, we'll see you on Cricbuzz Combox. I'm not yet sure who it'll be with me, but that's all on Cricbuzz Live for the moment.